I love strategy RPGs, but so many of them feel similar. You have games that are kind of like Fire Emblem, or kind of like Final Fantasy Tactics. But Valkyria Chronicles is truly a gem. Not only is it one of the most innovative titles the genre ever had, it also backs up its ingenuity with a rock-solid foundation. Simply put, Valkyria Chronicles is one of the best games ever made. And if you're a proud fan of tactics-style gameplay and haven't touched this one before, that needs to be rectified immediately. This game takes place during a fictional reinterpretation of World War II, which I think is actually really clever. It provides us with enough of an analog for what the world state is like, but gives the writers enough freedom to deviate from what we might normally expect from that time period. For example, a special, practically magical mineral called Ragnite has allowed for impressively innovative technology. And yet, this world still hasn't invented airplanes. But it doesn't feel out of place because this isn't the real world, or even an alternate history. It's the continent of Europa, and it has that bit of creative license. And the story is fine. I don't think it's absolutely exemplary, but I still found myself invested. To its credit, it actually goes into some pretty dark subject matter and doesn't try to shy away from the various atrocities that war, and just people in general, bring to the world. The various character portrayals and arcs everyone goes through is fairly cliche, although that isn't a problem for me, as no one is insufferably stuck in their ways. I guess I wish Welkin would shut up about nature and insects a little more, but when I think about it, I basically only ever talk about video games. So well played, Gunther. If you've played a Fire Emblem game before, you'll come to terms with Valkyria Chronicles very easily. You start with an overhead view detailing the positions of your units on the map. From there, you can select someone and move them around. Here's where the game sets itself apart though. From the selection, you actually move the character around in real time as they make their advance. At its heart, the game is still essentially turn-based, as once you hit the button to go into targeting mode, you can actually take all the time you need to aim the shot. Keep in mind you don't always have that luxury. While Valkyria Chronicles is as much about planning and making wise decisions as any other strategy game, it's also just as much about reacting and adapting to new information on the fly. Characters have a set distance they can travel during their turn. Forward, backward, doesn't matter. But if you're in firing range of an enemy, they won't wait patiently for you to get into position. They'll start firing whatever they have towards you. Running directly through enemy formations might as well be a death sentence. You still need to make careful advances. But while you're planning out moves on the overhead map, you only get a vague drawing of the battlefield, and can only see the enemies that your allied troops have a clear visual on. If you're not careful, you can easily get surprised and caught off guard. You need to locate enemies, but also find cover. You need to have units stick together, but you'll also have to be a little brave sometimes. It's important to keep in mind at all times when to move units, when to hold position, and even when not to use all your available soldiers. For example, it can actually be to your benefit not to move every character on your roster, or even leave a few slots open before deployment. Soldiers don't get one action per turn like most other strategy games. Instead, you have a command points bar. Every time a unit is ordered to move, it uses up 1 CP. But you also get a set amount at the start of every player phase. So you can stockpile your remaining charges if you want to have a lot more options open for the next round. As you progress in a map, you'll eventually capture a base or two, and if you have some leftover CP and an open slot in your roster, you can request reinforcements. This is a great way to get slower moving units up on the front lines, instead of lugging them around to the entire battle. Efficient play also relies on knowing when to do this. There are 6 different character classes in the game, if you include tanks. Each one has various pros and cons in practical combat situations. To be honest, you're probably going to be pumping most of your time and effort into scouts and lancers. But every class does contribute a valuable enough niche to the battles that you'd be foolish not to consider their inclusions. All these classes can be upgraded between missions, either by training them using experience, or researching and developing new equipment. Both of these are earned after missions, and the better you do, the more you'll have to spend. However, if you find yourself strapped on either, which probably won't be an issue unless you're consistently playing poor, you can also enter skirmishes to practice up on your tactics while earning additional resources. I kinda wish they went the extra mile and actually changed up the map layouts and enemy placements more, but this is hardly a bothersome qualm. After all, the game designers did their job properly, since you don't have to grind at all to finish the game, which is more than I can say about some other tactics games I've played. Valkyria Chronicles can be a fairly tough game if you're not prepared. Although I only just finished this game recently, I had played this one before when the PC version first dropped way back in the day. At the time, it was one of my first strategy RPGs. While I loved it, boy was it a struggle to make it through the game. I got mostly C and D ranks for almost all the missions, and gave up about halfway through the game. I just assumed I would never be able to finish it. Coming back now, I was actually surprised I found most of the game fairly easy. Emphasis on most though, because a few chapters are very unintuitive. But really, I was coasting through this recent playthrough of mine, and even enjoyed the chapters I had a bit of a challenging time with. Even though I found most of the game pretty easy overall, I don't think that's a bad thing. A strategy RPG doesn't necessarily need to be difficult, but it does have to make the player feel pressure to push ahead, which this game succeeds in doing greatly. This game encourages you to be gutsy and play fast. Heck, some of the missions require you to finish the objective within one turn if you want the A rank on your report. But there are even some times where I don't think the developers realized just how trivial their missions would be with the right setup. This chapter with Valkyria is one I think the developers wanted to be the most difficult in the game. You're constantly under heavy fire. If you haven't been using orders up to this point, this is where you're going to learn their effectiveness. The game even gives you 8 turns if you want the A rank. And yet, this is actually the easiest chapter in the game. Just load up on 4 snipers, hide them in the smoke bomb, and take down Valkyria without any returning fire. 1 turn, baby! That's all you need! Contributing to this game's ease of challenge is also the resilience of your soldiers. This game features a permanent death system, but you might not realize it. After someone loses all their HP, you can rescue them by calling over a medic within 3 turns. It sounds like an intense ordeal to rescue them, as you're theoretically putting another soldier in danger, but 3 turns is a generous amount of time. It's possible an enemy could touch their unconscious body and make a premature death occur, but this only ever happened 1 time in my playthrough. Even then, the enemy AI doesn't seem to prioritize this maneuver. In the event something catastrophic did happen, you wouldn't really have to worry either. The game also allows players to make a permanent save at any point they want during battles. So as long as you're making a healthy rotation, there's nothing you'll need to worry about ever. It's certainly helpful, but it's too exploitable. There's no limit, restrictions, or penalties when making a backup save. If we had a system where you got an additional save opportunity for every base camp you captured during battle, I think that would have been a better compromise. As it stands now, it gives players too much of an advantage. There's no strategy in save scumming. But a few minor quibbles can't hold this game back from a full recommendation. Its most egregious problems are mostly just passable annoyances. And for what few problems there are, it makes up for it in so many more ways. Like from a graphical fidelity standpoint, I would say Valkyria Chronicles is one of the best looking, or at least most visually appealing games to look at, with its watercolor anime style. Some details don't exactly hold up well with a bit more scrutiny, but the things you'll pay attention to the most are polished and well executed. In motion, the whole game looks excellent. And I can't think of a better way to describe this game in general. It nails the most important parts. Not only is its battle system innovative for the genre, it's also really fun to play. It's got a story that goes into as much depth as it needs and doesn't overstay its welcome. Seriously, check this game out if you haven't already, even if it takes you 6 years to finish. It's on most modern platforms, and you can usually find it for dirt cheap anyway. It's absolutely an incredible game.
Let's drive these Imperials back out of Gallia! Squad 7, move out!